Hey fans, I'm sure you're all waiting for the 6th episode with bated breath, just like me. Now that our wait is finally over, shall we get down to business? Yes, let's do that right away. So, grab onto your horses and make sure you have the doors and windows locked as we venture into the mysterious world of From. Spoiler warning, in case you've not seen the episode from this point onwards, there will be heavy spoilers. So, please beware. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means an awful lot. Thank you, and let's begin. Episode recap. From has always given us a memorable gut punch at the beginning of the episode, and this time it was no different. Jim woke up and found Tabitha up in the middle of the night. She felt like she could have done more and that her actions have let everyone down. He asked her to come back to bed, assuring her that everything would be okay. However, his reassurance ends up falling flat as Tabitha questions Jim's integrity. In the first season, Tabitha did show her disapproval of Jim's everything is okay sentiment, saying that he makes promises he cannot keep. On the other hand, Jim thinks Tabitha is someone who would much rather run away and deal with things on her own instead of facing trouble with the family. Jim feels like Tabitha could have told Jim about the faraway tree and gone to the place with him instead of doing it on her own, whereas Tabitha feels like it is better than at least one parent remained back instead of both of them going out and dying. Now, I can understand where both of them are coming from, and it's good that they're finally expressing how they truly feel about each other, but screaming and arguing in the middle of the night is not the healthiest way to deal with it. The next morning, Jim leaves early to go to the lake and bring back more food, but he did not wait until his kids woke up to tell them. That's why, when Julie finds out that Jim isn't there, she is a little taken aback. Tabitha tries to tell Julie that the reason Jim went was because the food was running short, but Julie had heard them screaming. She knows that her father went away to deal with things on his own, but that is apparently how Jim dealt with Thomas's death, so in Julie's eyes, her parents are finally returning to normal. With that statement, she left to go get Ethan for breakfast. While things are tense in the Matthews family, Boyd is having the worst time ever in the bar. See, Jade told him about the bottle tree and told Boyd that he had something exciting to show him. Boyd assumed that maybe Jade had cracked the code and figured out some connections, but no. Jade wanted to discuss the different possibilities of what these codes could mean. As Jade goes on tangents, Boyd is just left staring at him, going, huh? Finally, when Jade decided to take a breath, Boyd asked him the million-dollar question. Did you go to the other bottle tree? Jade is shocked to hear that he did not know Boyd and Sarah had found another bottle tree. So, hearing that, Jade now has another set of data to obsess over. He sets out to go to the bottle tree while Boyd leaves for somewhere else. Back at the colony house, Henry was waiting for Victor in his room. He clearly wanted to make a father-son outing and hopefully learn a bit more about him. As he waited, he played with one of Victor's belongings. When Victor came in, he told Henry that the car that he was playing with belonged to Mrs. Davis, who had bought it for her terminally ill son. She ended up getting trapped in a town after she bought the toy and was on her way home. After hearing this heart-wrenching story, Henry asks Victor about the day trip, hoping to lighten the mood to a degree. However, Victor refused, saying he had somewhere important to go and something important to do. Hearing that, Henry was crestfallen. He felt like he was bothering Victor and wanted to get out of his hair. Victor explained that wherever he was going, whatever he was about to do, it was super dangerous, and he just wanted Henry to be safe. However, if Henry wanted, he could join him for a walk. Henry agrees, and the father-son duo go off. Back at the clinic, Henry brings in all the medicines and equipments that he found inside the ambulance and hands it off to Mary. He meets Boyd outside, who is coming in, clearly to get a look at Randall. Since Randall's attack, Boyd has been feeling extremely guilty. As we all know, he tries to talk to Kenny about how he's holding up, but the latter brushes him aside and goes back into town. Boyd enters the clinic, and as he stares at Randall groaning in his sleep, Christy shows up. Christy tells Boyd that they have found a fully working ultrasound in the ambulance, which might help follow the progress of the baby. She asks Boyd to send in Fatima whenever she is ready to look at the baby, and Boyd sets out to go to the colony house. Speaking of which, back at the colony house, things are not going so well. We know that Fatima told Ellis about everything that was going on with her pregnancy and that she felt scared. Ellis did not know what he could do or say to make Fatima feel better. better. So he suggested they speak with Christy about it. At first, Fatima refuses because she's worried that everyone will look at her like she is at fault. However, this conversation gets cut short because Boyd shows up. When Ellis opens the door, Boyd immediately notices that something is wrong. Donna, on the other hand, was out in the pool burying Dale with rocks. Tabitha drops by to speak with Donna there. She admits that it feels like she let everyone down. However, Donna, being one of the only sane people in the town, insists that Tabitha should not feel guilty. She needs to be here for her family, and that is really all that she should focus on. Donna going full mama bear mode is definitely not something that I was expecting, but it did felt nice to see it. Tabitha gives Donna a hug, but it seems like she is barely holding on. I do not know which one out of the two needed the hug the most. Henry and Victor, on the other hand, finally reached the tunnel opening. Victor tried to send his father away, but Henry was adamant about not leaving. He had not seen his son for so many years, and now that he is there, he does not wish to lose him again. So despite not being very happy about it, Victor agrees to take Henry with him. While this father and son bond over something absolutely dangerous, Ellis and Boyd bond over something very strange. Ellis explained the pregnancy cravings to Boyd and stated that he thinks the cravings could be happening because of the town's effects on Fatima, nothing else. Boyd does not have words to explain how he feels, so he helpfully adds that Christy has the ultrasound machine from the ambulance. He gives the expectant parents a moment to decide if they want to go to the clinic and steps outside. Boyd looks absolutely worn out in this scene as he waits outside Ellis and Fatima's bedroom. Fatima refuses to go, insisting they can go tomorrow, but Ellis manages to comfort her, although she was crying a lot. Fatima finally decided that maybe going today would be the best call to make. Back at the clinic, Randall finally wakes up. As Mary checks his wounds for any sign of infection, Randall asks for a mirror to finally come face to face with the damage she received. I've always found Randall to be a bit of a jerk, but when he holds the mirror up to his face and you can see for a second that he's about to break, that hits hard. Kenny, who I think steps inside a home for the first time after Tian Chen's passing, goes to the kitchen looking for a screwdriver that his mom used to keep in the junk drawer. However, he does not find it there, and as we all know, the Matthews family had been living at Lou's home since their house broke down. So when Kenny sees the top of Julie's head outside the kitchen window, he goes to her hoping to know where the screwdriver is. He walks in on Julie smoking weed. After a quick promise that neither would sell the other out about Julie's habits, he asks about the screwdriver. Julie explains that it could be that Jim had taken it or misplaced it, and she immediately notices that Kenny is a bit upset. As for Henry and Victor, they venture deeper into the tunnels. Despite Henry's protests, Victor kept going deeper and deeper in the hopes to find Jasper. Eventually, when they find Jasper in one of the clearings, they see a creature sleeping in the corner of the tunnel. Victor manages to get Jasper in his bag and is about to leave when Henry notices Miranda's scarf, which freaks him out. The creature starts waking up, and one of the creatures tells Victor to stay out of the tunnels because one of these days they just keep him here. Victor and Henry rush out of the tunnels and end up in Clary's canned goods truck, planning on staying the night there. Henry breaks down when he realizes that his good truck had been Victor's home before the people came and he is all alone. Now, I definitely share the same feelings that Henry has for Victor. The thought of a young boy hiding away in a truck while these creatures roam around all over the place is a terrifying ordeal to think about. But things are about to get way worse in the town. As Boyd and Ellis wait for Fatima outside the colony house, Elgen clicks pictures of the residence members with his Polaroid. As Fatima comes downstairs, he clicks a picture of her as well. However, Fatima looks like she couldn't care less about Elgen's project and brushes him off as she steps outside. When they go to the clinic, they find out via the USG that Fatima is, in fact, not pregnant. I did not see that coming. Fatima is understandably shocked about it all, and so are Boyd and Ellis, as the Stevens family deals with such ground-shattering news. Jade finally manages to find the bottle tree that Sarah and Boyd came across. This is where he gets a vision of Tom again. The bartender wipes the glass in his hands and casually points out to Jade that whatever he's doing right now is not remotely enough to solve everything, because Jade, who created a multi-million-dollar project, was a stronger man who did not need to chase the end of the bottles for solutions. Jade is a bit hurt by Tom's statement, but soon realizes that whatever Tom says makes sense. Tabitha finally returned home after her short walk into town and found Ethan sitting in the kitchen, reading Tian Chen's book. As they talk about Tian Chen and Ethan trying to process her death, Tabitha hears noises upstairs. She asks if someone was upstairs, and when Ethan said there was nobody, Tabitha decided to go check regardless. The moment she reached the top of the stairs, she saw the ghoulish kids stepping out of the 2 bedrooms. Before she could turn around and go down the stairs, one of the kids showed up at the bottom of the stairs too. They repeatedly said "Aunt Cooey" as they cornered her against the wall. Before Tabitha could completely lose her mind, thankfully Ethan called out to her, snapping her out of the visions. So with no better plan at hand, Tabitha takes Ethan, steps out of the house, and visits Jade in the bar. There, as Ethan tries to go through all the dates that Jade got from the 2 bottle trees, Tabitha notices the drawing of the scary scarecrows that Jade had made. She asks Jade about the 3 red stones, something that only he had seen when he first got the hallucination of the man with the forbidden Kool-Aid. This is where we and Tabitha realized that she too was connected to the town and not just Miranda. Tabitha stated that when she was young, she used to have a nightmare about those scarecrows and the 3 red stones. Now we know that this was the town. Back at the colony house, Elgen finally hangs the Polaroids of all the members on a string, but when it is time to hang Fatima's picture, the kimono lady shows up in the frame next to her. She then shows up to Elgen and asks him to help her to send everyone home. Wow, what an episode, right? Everyone is talking to each other, sharing information. This is no longer a one-person project. They're hoping to solve the problem by themselves. Now, this is a group project. I'm so glad the season is going in this direction. With the episode ending on such a tense note, with so much information, there's no doubt we have so many things to talk about. So, let's go through all the important bits of information and theorize. Tabitha and her connection with the town. So listen, up until now, we all thought that the similarities between the Matthews family and the Kavanaugh family were weird. How can things be this eerily similar? We each had our own sets of theories. Some said Eloise is probably Tabitha's mother, some said Tabitha is Eloise. The possibilities were endless, but I do not think any of us expected to find out that Tabitha had dreams of this town back in the day. Now, I'm sure you're all thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. There is a high probability that baby Tabitha was actually here in this town. The Tabitha we saw in the flashback dream sequence looked extremely young. I would not be surprised if she was barely 5 or 6 years old, so could it be that Tabitha had actually been one of the very few who escaped the town as a child and now the town brought her back as if going back for an unfinished meal? Or it could be that because Tabitha was a child when she was in the town, maybe she was locked in the tower too. Who knows? I'm just glad that now we know for sure that Tabitha too shares this special connection with the town, which kind of explains why she is the chosen one. I feel like Tabitha's memories of her nightmares or childhood days would come back, giving us more information which would play a huge role in solving the mystery of the town. Jade and the bottle trees. I'm so glad that Boyd told Jade about the bottle trees that he found. Up until now, I was wondering which bottle tree Jim went to when he claimed he brought down the bottles. He did not speak with Victor, so the chances of him knowing the faraway bottle tree were slim. However, for Jade, Tabitha acted like a guide and brought him there. So he got the information from that bottle tree as well as Boyd's bottle tree. With now 2 sets of data to compare and understand, I do think Jade's chances of solving the mystery are quite high. Plus, he has Ethan on his side. While Ethan is no genius, his criminal story has given us and the other characters some very important clues that have helped them out. So, I would not be surprised if Ethan is the one who hands out something that would help Jade break the code. One of my favorite Jade moments in this episode has to be as he argues with Tom. Jade's point about not seeing visions of unimportant stuff made a lot of sense to me. Everything he has seen so far, even if it's just a glimpse of Jasper or the man with the Kool-Aid or even the Civil War soldier, they all seem disconnected at first glance, but that is because Jade has not yet put the pieces together. The moment he does so, it would be very easy for him to straighten up the story and figure out what was truly happening. Also, I have to admit, I'm so glad that Tom called out Jade and his alcoholism. I understand that Jade was drinking so much because of his failure to protect Julie and the death of Tian Chen. However, being drunk off his rockers would definitely not help solve the problems at hand. Just like Father Catry is the voice of reason for Boyd, I think Tom is the voice of reason for Jade. I do not think that it is an entity playing jokes on Jade. Whenever Tom is on screen, I feel like that is Jade's own accomplished software engineer self cussing out his currently alcoholic conspiracy theorist self. I can't wait for Ethan and Jade to figure out the sinister meanings of the dates. Like a lot of people said, they could not be dates. They could just be codes that, when broken down, will give us more information. Either way, this is going to be so much fun and I can't barely wait. Fatimas Pregnancy. Call it what you want, a heartbreak of the century or Ellis's contributions to the Fromville, but sadly guys, Fatima is not pregnant. I did not think that it would turn out this way, but then again, I was not surprised. The clues were there all along. We saw Fatima ask for a pregnancy test, but we never saw her actually getting a test result or anything. Christy simply told her that yep, she is pregnant, and I'm assuming that it was based on symptoms. Now, what Fatima went through is a very rare medical condition known as a false pregnancy. Her body prepared itself for a fetus that was never there. As sad as it may be, it does happen on rare occasions, and it is a harrowing experience to go through. But given Fatima is stuck in Fromville, things are never as simple as they seem. If she was never pregnant and the false pregnancy made her crave rotten vegetables and blood, then I do not think her turning into one of the creatures is that far-fetched of an imagination. It would make total sense. You know what else would make total sense? If Fatima ended up becoming an Ame-Ona. In a Japanese mythos, a young mother can become an Ame-Ona after she loses her child. And here we have Fatima, who just lost her child. I mean, technically her child was never there, but for Fatima, the child was real. And now it's suddenly gone. She might feel like the town snatched the baby straight out of her womb, and the grief might drive her crazy enough to go down a horrendous path. Now, one has to wonder, why did the town play such a cruel joke on Fatima? Well, the answers I have both relate to Boyd. So on one hand, you have the possibility that by taking away her unborn child, the town and the entity would be putting pressure on Boyd, making sure he knew where he stood in the town. If he keeps going against the town and pushes back, then the town too will push back and make sure it hurts him in very deep ways. Or it could be that seeing Fatima lose herself to grief would push Ellis to do something. Ellis has always been super pushy and even somewhat impulsive, and now with his wife going through such a hard time, I would not be surprised if he decides to go out and do something dumb. If he gets hurt, then that would break Boyd even further. Making Boyd question his own ability to serve and protect everyone around him is definitely a tactic that might just prove to be worthwhile for the monsters. Victor's adventure under the town. I mean, in the episode trailer, we did see that Victor and Henry would be going into the tunnels. However, when they actually went in, you can bet your ass I was super nervous. I mean, Henry is old. What if he slips and falls and becomes monster food? He just came to the town. There is no need for him to rush headfirst into dangerous situations like this. Victor seems to agree with my sentiments as he tries to send his father away. However, Henry refused to go, and the duo went inside the tunnels. I was not expecting to find out that scene between Christopher and Jasper that Victor had witnessed when he was young would turn out to be in the cave system. Like, that was not on my From bingo card. But as they went deeper and deeper into the tunnel, they finally came across that clearing with the dining table with Jasper sitting on one end. I was shocked. Also, why did the creatures collect the stuff of the dead? We saw they had a wheelchair, a pram, a grandfather clock, so many trinkets. And even Victor's mom's scarf. Maybe they collected as a trophy? You know, how the Yautja collect spines? But you know what seeing Miranda's scarf there reminded me of? The boy in white told Victor to collect stuff from the dead and bury those items as he could not lay down all the bodies by himself. The creatures living under the town in a tunnel system so they could be considered underground. So aren't they also burying the stuff of the dead underground? Is it just me who is seeing these parallels? Also, the creatures that taunted Victor and Henry sounded so sinister. Even though she was smiling and sounded so jovial, there was no denying the malice that was under her breath. She definitely gave me the heebie-jeebies. But all things said, I do think by getting Jasper, Victor did the right thing. Hopefully, he will be able to get Jasper to talk. I have a feeling that someone would have to drink the forbidden Kool-Aid to get Jasper talking. I'd not be surprised if Henry volunteered to do that. Although between you and me, I really want Henry and Victor to be safe and to go home alive. I do not want Victor to get hurt any further. I just want him to finally return and be happy. Elgen and his Polaroid. When Julie pulled out that Polaroid, it immediately reminded me of Shudder. For those who do not know, Shudder is a Thai horror film directed by Bon Joon Pisattanakul and Park Poom Woong Poo. Here, we have a photographer and his wife noticing some white marks on their honeymoon pictures. These white marks show up in the photographer's work shoot. The wife goes to a supernatural expert to figure out what these white marks mean, and this is where she learns that ghosts can use photographs to communicate with the living. So she takes a Polaroid with her, and off she goes ghost hunting. If you haven't seen it, you definitely should. The original is much better than the American remake, but the remade version is just as fun. So with that being said, when Elgen started clicking pictures of everyone in the colony house, I knew some fun wonky business would show up in Fatima's picture. I expected that she would have a wonky face, or more of like a creature's face. I did not expect to see the kimono lady. However, I am glad that the kimono lady showed up again. I'm hoping that now Elgen would start working on solving the kimono lady mystery, and maybe, just maybe, he would finally figure out the connection between Fatima and the kimono lady. I still think that the body of water that Elgen saw in his dreams is the lake where Jim and Kenny found the vegetables. Elgen needs to go there, maybe get in the water and figure out what he needs to do. The Ame-ona theories are definitely getting the best of me, and I do want to see how it all plays out in the long run. Randall and Kenny's moving. In this episode, we get to see both Randall and Kenny moving away from whatever place they have called home so far. When Kenny came home and found a screwdriver from the junk drawer missing, you can see that he felt lost, angry, and a bit upset. All this time, that house was his family's place. Now, suddenly, everything in his house was changing right after his mom's death. I know that everyone grieves differently after the loss of a loved one, and Kenny is no different. When he first got the news that Tian Chen passed away, he threw himself into work, angrily pushing the thoughts of her death and his inevitable loneliness away. Now that he's home from the lake with a majority of the food supplies, he has to be in this house. There is no way around it, and as he's looking into familiar places, expecting familiar things, he's seeing that stuff has been moved around. Now, instead of getting angry, upset, or even passive-aggressive, Kenny goes to Donna, who finishes up covering Dale at the pool. He asks her for a place in the colony house, saying that the Matthews need the house more and his mom would have wanted it for them. Donna agrees, and even in this moment of absolute heartbreaking grief for both the characters, as a matter of fact, they decide to joke around. Seeing Donna and Kenny laugh as they tease each other with teary eyes felt so real, and it felt like a gut punch that was hard enough to put me down for good. With Kenny moving into the colony house, I think he and Elgen would end up becoming friends. I know that up until now, Elgen and Kenny had not spent a lot of time together, but now that they share the same living space, I would not be surprised if they joined hands together. Now, as for Randall, I am glad that Mary offered him some space in the clinic. Up until now, Randall had been living in the bus for acting like a jerk to Donna and the other colony house members. While both Mary and Julie found ways to cope with their trauma at the hands of the music box monster, Randall had to stay up every night and face the creatures who were a part of this nightmare. With him moving in with Mary and Christy, I think he would get to have some sort of a break from the creatures peering into his window every night. Not only that, but I'm also hoping to see Mary and Randall bonding over their shared trauma. I hope that this bonding experience will go well, but I'll not be hoping for that. Here is why. Julie and her copium, a path to destruction. Julie, Mary, and Randall, all three of them had to face off against the music box monster and its psychological torture after getting trapped by it. While locked away in a dungeon, shackled in chains, these three saw so many horrific visions that it changed all three of them. Up until now, we've seen Randall and Julie talk openly about their experiences. Randall felt like death was not the worst thing that could happen to anyone who was stuck here after seeing those visions. Julie, on the other hand, said she got visions that she could not quite comprehend or even remember, but there was a constant screaming inside of her head. In the 6th episode, we saw Randall moving out and Julie speaking with him about it. While talking, she told him that being stoned helped her a lot. He asked if she had some stuff on her, so if I had to guess, I'd not be surprised if Randall and Julie starts getting high together while speaking about their traumas. Up until now, Mary had not opened up about her own trauma. Randall claimed that it was because she had already someone else in her bed, helping her forget. What if someday Christy is not around and Mary decides to speak with Randall about what she went through? What if Randall tells her that getting high would help and Mary relapses, something that Christy is always worried about? While I do not think the weed would hurt Julie or Randall that much, it is definitely going to affect Mary in ways that are beyond our comprehension. She was the one who saw Boyd's bloodworms. I wouldn't be surprised if, after taking 2 puffs of the pipe, Mary suddenly starts hearing things like Sarah, gets visions like Jade, and ends up having vivid dreams like Miranda. If any of these happened, I think Mary's mental health would be totally destroyed. She seems quite sensitive, and even though she's keeping herself together, I think that it's a front she's putting up for everyone. When that cracks, she will be devoured by the entity of this town, perhaps both psychologically and physically. What are we hoping for in episode 7 and the series in general? The episode trailer is yet to come out, but that is not going to stop me from telling you guys what we're hoping for from the 7th episode, titled These Fragile Lives. This episode will delve deeper into Fatima's journey with this hard-hitting news that she was never pregnant. Ellis and Boyd would understandably struggle to figure out how to help Fatima the best, as she clearly does not seem to be very much in her senses. As for Julie and Randall, they will be seeking some normalcy in their lives, so effectively, Honestly, I think they're going to get high and trauma bond like normal people. And lastly, we have Jade. The episode synopsis states that he would go into the forest following a trail of clues. I think he would come across both Henry and Victor in Clary's canned goods truck. And finally, Jade would get to hear about Miranda from Henry's mouth. I do not think Tabitha learned about Miranda's visions or dreams that deeply, as she was busy looking into the pictures in the basement. Maybe Jade would listen and figure out a connection, and hopefully that would help our characters finally go home. Also, I'm going to put my own theory out here. I think the bottle tree that Boyd and Sarah found stands for the very same bottle tree in Miranda's backyard. The copy of the faraway bottle tree is probably the tree in the park where Henry and Miranda took acid. I think that the park bottle tree is also a faraway tree, except it is an interdimensional one, as this Fromville seems to exist in a pocket dimension. Marvelous verdict. From is that one TV show that will give you 10 new questions for every existing puzzle it answers. I think any horror and mystery fan should give it a watch if they have not been following it already. With season 3 almost wrapping up, we the fans are desperate for some solid answers, and I sure hope that we get some of them by the end of this season. Let us know what you guys think of this new episode down below, and I'll see you guys next time. As always, if you like the content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.